Greetings everyone and welcome back to 365 Days of Prog. Today we're going to be reviewing Phantasmagoria by Curved Air.
Hi, my name's Naomi. I'm an avid progressive rock fan, but I'm a long ways from knowing all the prog albums out there. But this year, I'm gonna give it a try. This is 365 Days of Prog.
So, I've seen you've come for another round of Curved Air. Well, come on in. Here are some of my favorite bits from this album. So yeah, as you might recall, it hasn't been long since the last time we actually listened to a Curved Air album. We actually listened to their debut album, and I had a lot of criticism towards it, but I think the main point I was trying to make was the fact that that album had a ton of potential in many different ways, but it was just unused. And I think this album is a fantastic answer to that. If I'm not mistaken, this is their third album, and it really took all of the potential from the first album and utilized it in such a great way and made something really good out of it. Firstly, and maybe most prominently, is the recording quality on this album compared to their debut. Their debut album was so bad, I think my toaster could do a better job if I really tried, but honestly it was very off-putting from the music and I couldn't enjoy anything from it because it was recorded so badly. And yeah, right from the first track we really are introduced to a better recording and better sounding on here, and I really like that, and I think it made the entire experience of listening to this album a whole lot more enjoyable. But what else did they improve upon? Well, in my personal opinion, the music found on here on Phantasmagoria is much more enjoyable than the music found on Air Conditioning. I really like the music on here, it really is fun to me, and I know this is a controversial topic. Many people think that their first album is probably their greatest, but I have to disagree, and I think that the music on the first album is honestly just slightly better than mediocre. And most of this album, and especially the A-side, to me felt like if Jefferson Airplane just, dropped most of their psychedelia. And yeah, that's kind of the sound, and you can go to any track from the first side and you'll understand what I'm talking about. And this album opens up with one of their most popular tracks, at least from what I've seen on Spotify, Marie Antoinette. It's a cool little track, but I think it has one major flaw to it, and it doesn't really have to do with the music, or well, maybe it does. I think that this track could have been on any other subject and it wouldn't matter at all, because this track in its essence, it tells the story of the French monarch, of Marie Antoinette, and it's an interesting story and they say a lot about it, but the thing is, the music doesn't reflect any of that. You don't find any French influences, you don't find anything that sounds like it has to do anything with the story. You could honestly just take the playback for that song and put any other lyrics on it and they would fit just fine and sound completely natural. But then we move on to some really better tracks. So firstly we have Melinda More or Less. I really like the flute and violin combo on that one, and I think it would have been better if it were more progressive, because this one is kind of contemporary. But then the third track came up, and definitely it is my favorite from this album. It is more experimental and a bit more progressive than the last one, but it is kind of still accessible. But I think that the thing I really loved about this one is just the way that it juxtaposes the lyrics from the music. So you have really bright and cheery music, but the lyrics are, very morbid, like they're very dark. Just give it a listen, you'll see what I'm talking about. I really like it. I really like the way that the vocals on here appear. I think that they really carry this story being told, and I kind of like this one. And despite having some other tracks on this album as contenders to being the favorite, I've listened to all of them and I think this one is definitely the one I most enjoy personally. And then we get another track called Cheetah, which is fine, and then we are even revisiting the Vivaldi series from the debut album with Ultra Vivaldi, which could honestly, you know, be like Fast and Furious 1, 2, Ultra Fast and Furious and all that. It's kind of really funny. But then we get to the title track of Phantasmagoria, and this is where this album, and in particular this band, really starts to shine. From this point onwards, no player is overshadowed by any other. There's some sort of just harmonium in the way that everyone is performing, and I really like that. I always love it when bands find this, you know, balance between everyone and the songs feel complete because of it, and this entire B-side is basically just that. And what better track, or should I say tracks, on here represent that, if not the two that come after the title track, being Whose Shoulder Are You Looking Over Anyway, which is a great title, and the one that comes after that being Over and Above. Those two could honestly to me be categorized as one track. They even have a very seamless transition between them, and honestly I really like that. And this is where, if I just said that the band is less psychedelic, then this is where that reverts basically and comes back to being at least semi-improvisational and very much experimental. And honestly I really like these two tracks. Specifically Over and Above is just really great in my opinion, but I totally get why a lot of people wouldn't connect to this type of music, but it's just me liking what I like. You know, I somewhat get a vibe like the Beatles' Abbey Road on here. They don't really sound the same, but the idea is that this album as well as Abbey Road both find the most expression on the B-side. So you have the A-side, which is a lot more accessible, a lot more contemporary, but then you have the B-side, which is where the band really does what they want to do, and I really love it when that happens, and that's exactly why I really love Abbey Road from the Beatles, and that's exactly why I really love this album now. And then this album ends off with Once a Ghost, Always a Ghost, which is again a very cool title for a track, and this one is really odd because it has some really quirky Zappa lyrics, but it really also sounds like Duke Ellington's Caravan, so you know, it's kind of really odd mix of jazz and, you know, improvisational experimental prog, but I really like this one as well. I honestly think that they should have ended this album with the last track instead of Over and Above, and, you know, rearranged it in a different way, but this is also fine, I guess. So yeah, in conclusion, I really enjoyed listening to this album. I think that the thing that I really liked about it is the fact that it just mended my perception of this band as a whole, because from the debut album Air Conditioning by them, I kind of didn't really like what they were doing, and this one just kind of made me see them in a different light, and I'm really happy for it, and overall I'm very optimistic for the rest of their albums. So this cover to me for some reason doesn't feel like it was made back in 1972. It seems like it's trying to imitate the look of the past when in actuality it was made in the past. But yeah, I really like it. It's kind of simple in many ways, but I feel that it just has, you know, the vibes that this album gives off in many ways. The colors as well, they really represent this album quite well, and I honestly couldn't really tell you why, but that's what I feel. And yeah, that's pretty cool for a band that just not always uses covers for their albums. And if you're confused by what I just said, go and watch episode 112 and specifically skip to 6 minutes and 31 seconds. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So this one gets a very pleasant 8 out of 10. I'm really happy that my perception of Curved Air has been mended to the better, and I'm really looking forward to getting to the other Curved Air albums we have on this list. But that's about it, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for tomorrow because we're going to be listening to At a Niece by Anyone's Daughter. I of course want to thank my lovely supporter over on Patreon, so thank you so much to Clay Walnum. You are the best, and if any of you want to support me over on Patreon, you can find the link down in the description or in my about page. But that's about it, guys. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye, guys.